Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Caroline Slater.
And I'm her brother Sean.
And today we are talking about minute 66. It starts with May asking for a dating profile help, and ends a minute later with Miles leaving the lab.
And what did you end up titling this minute?
Barrage of requirements.
Yep, they definitely do have a lot of requirements that they ask about Miles to see if he can get the job of being the Spider-Man that saves the multiverse.
It takes a lot to be Spider-Man, like floating through the air when you smell a delicious pie.
Yeah, that one I don't think he'll ever be able to do.
He might. Just take some creative web slinging.
Yeah. No.
Do you think he'll ever become psychic? That was another one that was brought up.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
I do love how that's the one that causes him to say what. He's like, what?
In his defense, I think he didn't really get time to react to floating through the air because he was immediately asked about being strong, ruthless. I think there was another surprise attack in there. And then psychic.
Yeah, it's strong, ruthless, disciplined.
That's it.
Miles is like, maybe. And then Spider-Ham just like smashes his head and goes boing. And this is where, like, I was saying last minute about how Gwen becomes more like Gwen. Like, I feel like her lines are a bit more like her in this minute. And they all kind of become a bit more kind about asking of, like, what makes him him. Like, it's all inner stuff instead of outer stuff that they're asking about.
Yeah.
And, like, Gwen's line, there's two Gwen lines in here that are really good, and it's above all, no matter how many times you get hit, can you get back up? And she says, it's not in the script, so I had to kind of like play this back a bunch of times because it's when they're all talking over each other, but it's do you think you can give it your all when either in or on the critical moment when the pressure's on? So do you think you can give it your all when in the critical moment when the pressure's on? It's probably what it is. But I like that one as well, as like, you know, that, and can you get back up when you get knocked down?
I didn't hear the other one, so like when I was watching the minute,
it's very hard to hear. Like, I just noticed you can hear the like very beginning of it, but then I think Penny comes and says something over her, and so it's hard to hear exactly.
Make out.
Yeah,
makes sense. I like both of those lines, and I also love when she does knock Miles down, and it kind of goes into this montage of Miles getting knocked down, and they do a great job of like, they're really good at like picturing and getting senses of like emotional things done visually and getting the audience to experience it. So this one is like so overwhelming.
Yeah, it's usually I don't like it's not really, this isn't really a fight, but like in movies when they, you know, you have all the shaky cam and whatnot during fights and you can't follow what's going on.
It's terrible.
Like, I always say, like, yeah, I don't like shaky cam, but then, like, sometimes during fight scenes, I'm like, oh, it makes sense here because, like, you're trying to do it from the character's perspective and they don't know what's going on, so, like, the audience doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I prefer when there's not shaky cam. I think in this case it works well because it's not really a fight, and you can still sort of, like, the spacing doesn't matter in the fight. It's, okay, Miles gets knocked down and, like, there's all these people popping up in front of him, and that, like, you can still kind of get a sense of space of what's going on in it, and it's not totally, like, crazy of, you know, a lot of rapid cuts.
And I'm like you, I'm not a big fan of, like, the shaky cam and the rapid cuts. I think it can be used very effectively, and I have seen it used very effectively. This is one of the times I feel it is used very well because it does feel like they're trying to get the sense of emotion of what Miles is feeling and not really trying to tell us visually what's going on. Like, they're telling us visually what's going on, but they're trying to tell us, like, visually what Miles is feeling.
Yeah, it gets the feeling across visually.
So it's less about, like, how he's processing the fight and more about how he's just processing everything.
Yep.
Like, it's so overwhelming. Like, you can't really make out what's what, and that it works so effective, in my opinion. And then you're just getting barraged by all of these, like, come on, Miles, to him.
Yeah. And then Peter's just like, cool it, like, okay,
guys, cool it, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so quiet compared to the others.
Yeah.
Like, you almost don't hear it.
And this was one of the things that they didn't have for a while. Like, it wasn't until, like, you know, later on in the process that they added his cool it in.
Mm-hmm.
And it does a lot to, like, you kind of don't notice that Peter's one like is just kind of standing this bit out.
Yeah.
But then once it seems to get like a bit too excessive, he's like, okay, guys, like, come on, he's a kid.
Yeah. Peter has known from the beginning and knows a lot more about what Miles has went through.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's a little protective of Miles in a way.
Yep.
Of like, yeah, you want him to do all this stuff, but like, guys, he's been through a crap ton.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they didn't have him join in on the, like, gang up of Miles. Like, it was nice that he pretty much just, you know, is always on his side.
Yeah, it's just this nice, like, he's looking out for Miles.
Yeah, and, like, at the end of the minute when Miles leaves and turns invisible, I even like the, like, see, he can turn invisible.
I wasn't lying.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this very, like, see, he can do it. Like, trying to get that positive spin.
He feels bad about what, like, he had to go through
to get it to happen. Yeah. Last few things I want to bring up are, I love the shot they show of Miles not getting up.
Yeah.
Because, and we'll probably bring this up again in a later minute, but I want to bring it up now before I forget, is it reflects, near the end of the movie, we see the very similar shot of Miles when he finally does become Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a great setup of showing, like, then how far he comes.
It shows that he isn't there yet, and, like, he does have some work that needs to get done. Mm-hmm. Or that work that he needs to do.
Yes, and it's also just a great shot, like, the pose they put him into, like, you could see him either getting up or being defeated. Like, it's a great, like, you don't know how he's going to react sort of pose.
Yeah.
The last thing I just want to bring up is, like, right when Miles is leaving and he's invisible, one of my favorite songs from the soundtrack, I feel like I say that about quite a few of the songs, but this one really does, especially when it comes to the more somber songs. This one is really good. It is Scared of the Dark, and it is by Lil Wayne, Ty Dolla $ign, and XXXTentacion.
Yeah, I really love this song too. I think they featured it heavily in the, like, promotion for the movie, I think. Isn't it in one of the trailers? Or am I misremembering? I might just be misremembering.
I'd have to look back at the trailers.
This is
put that in for the credits. Double check the trailers.
This is one of the most played songs on the like, album that I have from this movie is this one and, like, Familia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sunflower. A lot of people, like, think of that one as, like, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse song, which I love. Sunflower. Don't get me wrong. Familia and this song are, like, my two favorites. Like, I go back and forth on them a lot about which one is I like more.
Yeah.
I just think they're used very effectively in the movie, and, like, this one even a little more than Familia. Like, Familia is used very much in the background. Like, we talked about it. It was just sort of, like, to sort of establish more of, like, who Miles was as a person. Very similar to Sunflower. But this one just does such a great job of tone in this moment. Yeah,
and I think, too, they bring this one a bit more to the forefront than some of the other songs.
Yeah.
And, like, it's played more as, like, a here's the music now kind of thing. Then, like, I guess, is Familia the one that we get the through the city, like, the montage?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It's right when he's, like, walking through Brooklyn Middle.
Yeah. And so that one does get brought to the front briefly as well. So,
but not as much as this one. Like,
yeah,
this one definitely is brought up.
Becomes front and center, and then like, hey, we're gonna give you exposition through music like.
It's not even exposition. It's almost more of like, and this might be me thinking of it like through a theater brain a bit, but one of the things with musical theater, and I believe Hugh Jackman is the one who said it. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But like, one of the great things about musical theater is when speaking no longer can be effective, that's when someone starts singing in musical theater. In good musical theater.
Yeah.
So, like, having this song, it almost feels, especially having listened to it a lot and knowing the lyrics quite a bit, it almost feels like it's Miles' internal monologue just trying to pep himself back up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of just like, hey, this is what Miles is like humming to himself now.
Like, he's just like, I can do this, but like, he's still very doubtful of himself, which is why the tone doesn't totally fit the lyrics in many ways. But, I just love this song. It's really what it is. I just love the song. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about it and the effectiveness in the next minute. Because we do get to hear more, but like, this is really just the very beginning of the song. Yeah,
we just wanted to touch on it here. The last thing I wanted to touch on is just a bit about Penny's animation and some stuff on the spider suit real quick. So they were saying how Penny is animated on the 3s and 4s, whereas a lot of the other characters are animated on the 1s and 2s. Sometimes they're done on 3s and 4s, but Penny's is a bit more like, it happens more often to try to, like, make her feel more like an anime brought into this universe. And she also changes her like art style the most to try to encompass, like, I mean, anime is such a broad like category. There's the different art styles, and
we talked about that when we first talked about Penny, how in the comics she is more of the
she's got more of the like Evangelion
in the comics, but here they made her more of the traditional kawaii anime art style. Kawaii, what did I say? Kawaii.
But yeah, so like, she kind of tries to, they'll switch her animation style up a little bit, so they I forget when exactly in this minute it happens, but at some point in the minute, I think it's during the glitch. I think it was during the like questioning. She switched art style a little bit as one of her like, hey, can you do this? And they stylize it up. And then the other thing is just like what's written on the spider suit. On his arm, you can see like, or not his arm. I think it's on some of his chest plating. You can see some text written, and it's automag hyphen and then SUSP. So I'm guessing suspension. So magnetic suspension, which is the twirly bits that you see. And then it's ASST, which is either assistant suit or assault suit Mark II. And it's the Arachno processor, NGE CX001109 or 1109. Colossite, and then L6/10 YKD0002. So Arachno processor, it's the spider processor. I wasn't able to find anything if any of that other stuff, like any of the NGE or the CX numbers mean anything substantial, if they're references to anything. And then Colossite, just because it's a big spider, I'm guessing there might be another reference to that. Yeah, I know, like colossal. But then it's the last line is the beginning of it begins with P3 lowercase n capital I. So it's Penny. I think it's yeah, so they call it like, it's got Penny on the thing. So I bet you that's like the serial number, because then it's 009.
She wrote our name on it, so it is hers now. That's how that works.
Yeah. So it's got Penny written in Leet, which is just it's always interesting, like reading those kind of things.
That's pretty cool.
So, is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we close off this week?
That's the only thing. That's all I have.
Sounds good. Then thank you for joining us for minute 66 here today. Join us on Monday where we continue with minute 67. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at SpiderVerseMin, M-I-N, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Spider-Verse Minute. And if you want to send an email on over to us, you can contact us at podcast@spiderverseminute.com.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.